everyone, I'm Ellen Jaffe Jones with Running at 70. Although not today, it's cold in Florida. I'm wearing my very old Lululemon jacket. I'll talk about why I'm not running so much these days, but first of all, that is Pumpkin and that is Princess. Enjoying a very rare, it seems, calm moment here after the holidays. I hope yours was better than mine. As you might be able to hear, I'm a little congested. And, you know, the kind folks that I work with said, you know, you really should skip doing a video this week, Ellen. You've been under the weather. So went through Christmas fine, Christmas dinner with extended friends and their families. And then the next morning I woke up hardly able to breathe. And I'll talk about me later, but first I want to prioritize why it's so important to focus on your health and longevity for the coming year. Now, we all make New Year's resolutions, and I've done lots of videos in previous years about that and why it's important, even though the majority of us will set those resolutions and throw them out the window by the time February 1st rolls around. But it is human nature to kind of look back, reflect, reminisce, figure out what worked, what will work in the coming years, months, weeks, and design a priority list based around that. So I would really encourage you to at least take maybe a minute or more to come up with some things that you want to do for the coming year that maybe will improve your health. And it's really about just enjoying a better quality of life. And so you may say, oh, Ellen, you're vegan and you're sick. Well, guess what? It does happen. And I'm not really that sick, although I am on antibiotics and an inhaler for what has been diagnosed only as chronic bronchitis. So as you can see, the COVID test for the gazillionth time is negative. But this started out as a cough and has really pretty much stayed that way. And when I lived up north, I had so much chronic bronchitis, and it was diagnosed that way. I was always on antibiotics, it seemed. It's amazing there's anything left of my colon. And I even had IV antibiotics at one point. That's how bad it got. And for some people, especially, you know, who knows? I had a very low birth weight, both parents chain smokers. My birth weight was something around 4 or 5 pounds. I was kept in the hospital. This was before neonatal units. I was kept there for 3 months. And so presumably things may not have been developed as like my lungs. So I've always had issues, but it's mainly been around cold. And of course, my parents didn't stop smoking until I was in my teens, but they just didn't know. I mean, their doctors smoked and told them to do it to relax, and they just didn't know. And by the way, that analogy, the way doctors were so programmed, has been used in comparing how the dairy industry has infiltrated our advertising and our psyche. I mean, we are the only species that drinks milk from another species, so nutritionally we don't need it. And that was the other thing that I found. Once I cut out dairy, the constant sinus dripping in the back of my throat went away, just like that. Same thing happened to my dad when he was in assisted living. He told me in his 80s, he said, Ellen, why didn't you tell me this sooner? It's like, okay, Dad. You know, he just, of course I had been considered the health nut in my family, and that was a nice term that some of them used. My parents really respected what I did, especially later in life, as they saw that my health was improving. And having known, you know, raising me as a child who was always sick, always suffering with bronchitis. So that's one of the things that has motivated me to just continue to spread the whole foods, vegan message out there, because you really can see dramatic changes in your health. And it's just so important to take proactive steps toward a healthier lifestyle. So let's talk about how you do that. Step 1, integrating a balanced diet. And the significance of a well-rounded diet means that it's going to be rich in nutrients for maintaining health and longevity. And I just want to share some examples of nutrient-dense foods that I have been eating. And I'll just kind of share, especially since I've been a little under the weather. And I only had a fever for 1 day, which, you know, wasn't, compared to my past bouts of bronchitis, was nothing. And by the way, since I've lived in Florida, this is only my second time having bronchitis. When I lived up north, I would get it like clockwork usually every winter. So dried beans, of course, when you're not feeling well, you don't really feel like cooking from scratch. But then again, if you're home all day, what else are you going to do, right? So any kind of bean is like going to be your source of nutrition for protein, and although there's protein in tons of other vegan foods, so not to worry, you won't die of a protein deficiency. And if you're not feeling so great, no big deal to get the canned varieties. If you're really feeling adventurous, you can get these different combinations of soups. So all you do is add water, a can of chopped tomatoes, and it's all done for you. So really cool that those kinds of things are available. And then, of course, brown rice. I try and buy organic again because of our family history of breast cancer. Mom and both sisters had it. I do try and avoid toxins where possible. So the chemicals that are in pesticides, I try and not include them in my diet quite so much. And then I always keep a container or two of fresh greens, and have used this in the salad that I made for our holiday dinner. And, it's interesting. I always offer to bring the holiday salad, and only one person besides me ate it. And so plenty of leftovers for me to take home. And I just try and view that positively. But plenty of fruits, fresh fruits if you can get them. My partner went to the grocery store for the first time in ages, I guess, and he was just kind of blown away by how expensive things were, and said, I spent $100 at the grocery store. And it's like, yeah, dear, welcome to my world. All right. So how are you going to deal with all of these challenges about trying to get a meal together and eating the colors of the rainbow? I'm a trained cooking instructor with Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, part of their Food for Life program. And they have a beautiful chart called Eat the Colors of the Rainbow. And on that chart, every color is identified with a certain fruit or vegetable. So purple, resveratrol, is the antioxidant, and that's found in grapes and blueberries, things that are blue or purple in color. Just things like lycopene, tomatoes, anything that's red is going to have antioxidant called lycopene, and very healthy for you. So, Mother Nature in her perfect wisdom designed all these beautiful colors so our mind's eye would be attracted to them. And when you go to the grocery store now, most places have the produce section right gobsmacking you in the eyes as you walk in. So, just let your mind wander to whatever looks beautiful. And of course, one of the reasons my publisher no longer does cookbooks is you can go online on Google and just identify that particular ingredient and find a recipe that's vegan that's built around it. So you don't have to necessarily consult a physical cookbook. And all my 6 cookbooks, especially Eat Vegan on $4 a Day, which is enjoying a recent resurgence, is out there. All these different recipes, however you get them, can help you if you are out of an idea on how to prepare something. But it really doesn't take a lot of rocket science to figure this out. I just basically make some kind of dish with a whole grain and some kind of beans and then a salad and call it a day. You can go on websites like Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, that's pcrm.org, and they have a whole recipe section and lots of great information there. And of course, all of the many long-standing, reputable, trustworthy vegan doctors who have designed websites, they all have recipes as part of their sites as well. So John McDougall, Dr. Greger, nutritionfacts.org. There's so many doctors out there who have taken the time to give us the tools on how to do this. And really, I'm the beneficiary of this. And, one of the things in having had bronchitis, it often, when I was younger, before I was vegan, because there was so much sinus drainage, it went into pneumonia. And I feel very lucky right now that I feel pretty good, and I think this is going to be a short duration. I would go on with bronchitis for months. So I think having changed my diet and eating the way I do has really not kept me down at all. Step number 2, establishing a consistent exercise routine. Now, I've talked about this before, but it bears worth repeating. As you age, the most important thing is to keep moving. One of the reasons I have bronchitis is because I maybe didn't listen to myself and did just a little more than keep moving. I went out running twice when the temperatures had dropped, and it was like reminiscent of me running up north where I used to live, and my lungs were just not ready for the cold night air. And that's the reason the doctor says I probably got bronchitis. And I went right to that, no other virus. They tested me for the flu, negative. You just have to find a routine that works well for you. It doesn't have to be any kind of extreme sport. Just committing to walking 30 minutes a day and then adding 5 minutes more to that, up to an hour, is just absolutely the best kind of exercise you can start with, especially if you're new to any kind of fitness. No matter what your age, it's just important to keep moving, because obesity is still continuing to blow out of control and resulting in so many diseases of affluence, as Dr. T. Colin Campbell likes to describe them: cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all the itises. So just important that you find some way to incorporate exercise into your routine. And if you need to, schedule it on the calendar. Make an appointment for yourself and just do it. Usually the best time to exercise, people always ask when's the best time to exercise. It's whenever you can find time. But if it works for you to do it in the morning, that really, in my opinion, is the best time because it energizes you for the rest of the day. If you do it at night, then you tend to be a little more alert and might have challenges falling asleep. But for some people, and when I was a younger working television reporter, I had to get started very early with my job, so I did run at the end of the day, and it worked. And then I would come home and eat after that. So you just have to find what works for you and make sure that you find something to do to get your heart rate up. And you might ask, well, how do I know if I'm getting my heart rate up? Well, you can take your pulse on the side of your neck, or you can get one of these watches that will tell you exactly what your heart rate is. And it's just always a good thing to know. And watches like the Apple Watch that I have and Garmin, they all do heart rate training. So you can even do training programs. But that's a little high tech. It's just a matter of getting out and just doing it. Put your clothes in front of you on your nightstand so that when you get up in the morning, you have no excuses to pull the covers up and say, oh, it's too cold. I mean, you may say that, but you got to still do it anyway. I'm not talking about high impact exercises like running or different kinds of classes you might take at the gym where you do a lot of pounding. I have mentioned that I have taken a part-time job working at Fleet Feet here in Sarasota, and I was astounded to find out that 90% of the people who come in are healthcare workers on their feet all day, or firefighters, police officers walking around on concrete all day, and all they want is a little plantar fasciitis relief and some comfortable shoes. And because I'm now standing on my feet for more than a few hours a day doing the same thing, I too have been looking at different kinds of shoes. And they've done so much more now with foam to make it comfortable for you. You just have to find what feels good for you. But there are plenty of low impact kinds of sports that you can do, like yoga, like Tai Chi, where you're not pounding the pavement, but you are getting your heart rate up. There's also a great company called Get Set Up. I think I've shared with you that I was a sponsored athlete at the National Senior Games for a couple years with them, and they have online classes that you can take. So you don't even have to go to a gym to get your heart rate up. And their fitness classes are good for if you are cooped up inside somewhere and just don't have an opportunity to get out. But you can definitely follow programs like that. And I think some of my classes are still up there as well. But just finding hand weights that are 2 or 3 pounds, you can be walking in place. You can be walking in place and just walking around your house. Even doing things like cleaning. That's all good exercise to get your heart rate up, no matter what age you are, but especially if you are concerned about too much pounding on your joints, if you have something like arthritis. Maybe you can't get out every day. Every other day can be just as good, but have some kind of goal that you set for yourself that is realistic so that you don't have to be wondering, well, what should I do today? And make a schedule and just stick to it, because the rewards are so beneficial and I know you won't regret it. Step number 3 is cultivating mental well-being. And this is a tough one because we tend to overlook it and say, okay, if I go running, I'll feel good. And yes, that is true. Or if I go walking, it'll change my mood, especially if you go outside. Yes, it will. But by the time you get to this age, you probably had a lot of what life has thrown at you. And I was recalling for my daughters just yesterday, because there was a big article in one of our local papers about the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene studies. And as I've shared with you, our family has been part of that study, to the point where they wanted to exhume dead relatives to find out what their DNA was once that whole thing happened. And my daughter did not remember that we were part of the study. And so I shared with her some of the details of the logistics of being part of that study. And, that was until I knew a few years ago whether or not I had the gene. Turns out I don't. But everybody else in my family presumably did, the ones who all got breast cancer, especially the ones who got it at a younger age. And maybe the 2 relatives who got it at an older age did not have it, because only 10% of all breast cancer cases are genetic anyway. So, but I lived my life as if I did have the gene. And I was really scared to even get married, because if I have the gene, is this something I want to pass down to my children? And trust me, all 3 daughters are very grateful I don't have the gene. But that was a huge stressor. And I've had some other stressors that I won't share with you that are just the worst kinds of things that could happen to a mom. Not the death of a child, but some pretty horrific things. I often joke, it's been tough to deal with. And I could have chosen a much darker path with the way things played out. But instead, I chose to channel that anger and sadness into activities like writing 6 health and fitness books. And that has been a game changer for me, because I think if I'd gone to the dark side and looked for things like drugs or other ways that humans tend to self-medicate, it could have been a bad outcome. So my family of origin, it was great growing up with them because I had a lot of positive role influences, positive role models, and I wanted to be like a couple of my uncles, and so that was helpful. But boy, adulthood was just a real tough challenge at times with the kinds of things that happened along the way. And we all find ways of dealing, of course, and if you need help, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to any healthcare professional to get assistance. It's not the bad thing that I know my older relatives, like, they would never think of seeking out a psychologist or a psychiatrist for any kind of issue that they had, because it was considered such a stigma. But to manage stress for yourself, things that are great for exercise, because there is such a correlation in mood, of course, yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, journaling. One of the things that's so great about smartphones is that most of them now have some kind of notes function. So, I will be riding in the car and just my thoughts I'll dictate into the notes function. And, it's a great release, a very cathartic experience sometimes to just write it all down, to spit it all out. As Anne Frank, who wrote a great book that I read as a child, The Diary of Anne Frank, said, paper is patient. And it truly is. And I've kept a diary since I was a kid. And it's probably one of the reasons that I became a TV reporter, is because it was just a great way to develop my thoughts and to put it all on paper, or now electronics. But also never underestimate the role that connecting with others has, that social activities, social connections are really important to maintaining our mental health, however you do it, whether it's online, don't discount it just because it's Facebook. I know some people have sworn off social media, especially Facebook, for whatever reason. They're not missing you. But if you join certain groups, maybe that helps you feel better. I know I am a part of several vegan groups in our local community that have actual get-togethers. We had one about 10 days ago, and they had one for Thanksgiving. They had one for Christmas that we didn't go to. But just maintaining those social connections, it really is important for human survival. So hopefully there are a few people in your life that you can reach out to and still have that connection. And again, something like Get Set Up has that available. All kinds of interests are on that platform, and they are the largest platform of online classes for people over 55. So it's something to check out. There are all kinds of ways of reaching out locally through meetup groups, which have different interests. So if you have an interest in sailing or cooking, you can go and find actual meetings that get together, often for free, at different locations in your area. The whole idea is to engage in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, because many of us have been through the mill by this point, and it's a real challenge to not go to the dark side and remember the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. It's so hard not to have regrets, but then again, it's a focus for the new year, I hope for you, to live in the moment and find things that you enjoy that bring you happiness and peace. So when you have the interconnectedness of diet, exercise, and mental health, it really creates this whole picture of fulfillment and happiness. And I wish for you all the best in the new year in finding ways to connect all 3 of those dots, to start small and gradually build these practices into something that works in your daily life. There's going to be a lot of experimentation, and I have gone way back and forth between walking, okay, just do walking, Ellen, or, if I can run and I can place in a race, well, maybe I want to do more running. So you never know what's going to float your boat. You just have to try different things and see what works for your body, your time, and your lifestyle. So I hope you'll share what your plans are for prioritizing your plans for health in 2024. If you find value in this, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I really want to thank you for watching, and just don't forget to combine all those wonderful ideas that we have out there in the vegan universe that combines diet, lifestyle, exercise, and wellness with a goal of focusing on how do you get to the finish line feeling great. It's called longevity. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. Have a great new year. See you next year.